Roger, before we talk about the Vegan Information Project and your work with it, can you give us a summary of the history of your work with animal rights? Like, I know there is a Wikipedia page about you, and your story is not a short story, but feel free to talk about your work on animal rights up to when the Vegan Information Project was founded.
Yeah, okay. Well, hello, Darren, first of all. And, so I went vegan in 1979. And I had a false start. I tried to join the Hunt Saboteurs in 1977, but there was nobody around my area to do that, you know. And so I got involved, because I moved down south in England, this was. I got involved with the Hunt Saboteurs, then it just kind of escalated, really. I became a vegan within 3 months. And it's an interesting story, that, really, because a lot of people go vegetarian first, and I didn't do that. And I'm always kind of very grateful for it, because a lot of people get stuck in vegetarianism. In fact, we're at the stall right now, and we get vegetarians every week saying that they're stuck on cheese and that kind of stuff, you know, so there's kind of issues. We obviously emphasize the fact that it's an ethical thing for us, you know, and once you've got an ethical reason for doing something, then it makes it a lot easier. You know, when I went vegan, there was no soy milk, there was no vegan cheese, there was very few vegan meats, that kind of stuff, you know. All that stuff has kind of, you know, come since then, really.
I was looking at your Wikipedia page. You were imprisoned for the cause once, weren't you?
Yeah, I was in prison for 4 years. That's right. I actually did just over 2. I was actually part of a conspiracy trial, so I was on the periphery of it, really, and I was a spokesperson for a particular group. And effectively, what they wanted to do is silence the group. So the people who got the biggest sentences were the spokespeople. The activists, as such, got less sentences. So they actually took action to silence us, really. That's what it was. Yeah.
And who was the group you were representing?
That was called the Animal Liberation Front Supporters Group at the time.
And can you tell us what they actually convicted you for? Like,
yeah, I was charged with 3 things. I was charged with conspiracy to cause arson, and I was acquitted of that. I was charged with conspiracy to cause criminal damage, and I was convicted of that, but I was actually innocent of it. And then I was also charged with conspiracy to incite others to cause criminal damage, and it's that one, because I was a spokesperson, that I suppose I was technically guilty of.
That's interesting. Yeah, and you're a lecturer today, are you, in UCD? Are you still a lecturer?
Yeah, occasional lecturer at UCD. It's getting more occasional, but I should be back there this September, hopefully.
What do you lecture in?
In sociology. So I do basic kind of social theory, but I also do some specialist stuff like the media, social movements, and also I've got a real specialised one which is called the sociology of humour, which is like a niche thing, really.
When was the Vegan Information Project founded, and what do you do exactly with it?
Yeah, so we were founded in 2013, and the first thing we did was come to Temple Bar Square. We got a 16-week residency here, and we're now here for a good long time. Hopefully, you know, we've been here for a few months now. Essentially, the VIP was born out of the fact that we wanted to do more than what most groups do, which is kind of like have a fold-down table and a few leaflets and a few posters. We wanted to do something bigger, because as you can see here, you know, visibility is really important, you know, and so we try and make it as big as possible. At the moment, we're dealing with 6 meters by 3 meters double gazebo, got big banners, got lots of literature, you know, vegan cheese samples, this kind of stuff. So it's all to do with visibility. We often will show films as well, and we're looking to kind of make that part of it a little bit better. You know, we've done stuff there's a thing called pay-to-view, where you actually give people money to watch a film. So we're kind of playing with that idea. There's also another one where people wear some goggles, and it's like one of those immersion things. And so people can actually experience what it'd be like to be inside a slaughterhouse, and that had a big effect on people, as you can imagine, because most people, even though they eat flesh and they drink milk and eat eggs and everything, they've never been inside a slaughterhouse. You know, it's quite a shock for them.
Are you the director of the organisation or the main spokesperson? How many people are working on it with you?
Yeah, it varies from week to week, but I call myself kind of an organising volunteer. Everyone else is volunteers, no paid staff, and so we can get between, say, 4 to sometimes 10 people every week. We also help out Declan's group, Vigo, on a Saturday. and so they do Westmoreland Street, and we specialise in Temple Bar for 5 hours. So altogether, we're involved with 10 hours of street education, and we feel that's really interesting because you have to really get to the public, because we're trying to change the culture, and we're trying to get people to understand that veganism is a philosophy. It's about justice. It's about non-violence. And once we start to talk to people about that, they kind of get it, if you like. I describe people nowadays as vegan curious. When I went vegan, people couldn't pronounce the word, and so people are really much more kind of like, tell me all about it, what's going on. As I said, we get a lot of interested vegetarians. We also get a lot of interested people just generally. We now meet fully vegan families quite often, and so that's getting more and more a regular thing to happen, so it's kind of taken off in Ireland, and a lot of people thought that Ireland would really be lagging behind, and I suppose it is lagging behind places like US, England, and maybe Germany, but it's really taken off in Ireland. We're quite proud of what we've done so far.
But based on the events you have here in Ireland, how many do you think approximately vegans we have in Ireland?
Yeah, it's a common question, and it's very difficult to answer, because the problem with that is that when people do studies about it, even the kind of big poll groups, they tend to conflate veganism with vegetarianism. And then it becomes a problem then, because if people are self-defining what it is, you'll get a lot of people who say they're vegetarians, but they eat fishes or they eat chickens. And so there's a lot of people who might say they're vegan or vegetarian, but they probably wouldn't meet the criteria for other people. So it's difficult to say. But generally speaking, we tend to say that it's probably between maybe 1 to say 3 to 4% of the population. Yeah.
Something that's in the news a lot, I find, in the last few months that I'm aware of is particularly in the social media, I think, is the dog eating festival in China. Do you know about this? Yeah. Are the dogs, or some of them, actually tortured, do you know, as has been claimed?
It's difficult to know, and also it's difficult to know to what extent. I mean, obviously, there's been instances of dogs skinned alive, but then again, there's all kinds of things going on in Ireland like that as well. It's just,
I don't understand, how an animal, unless the person that's doing it is just pure evil, I don't understand how an animal can be skinned alive. Surely it'd be easier to kill them first, and then, because if you're skinning them alive, there's going to be a lot of noise. It seems to be just insane or just evil.
Well, I think, some people would point to the fact that there's a cultural aspect sometimes, and there's a suggestion that kind of makes the flesh better in some way. But in terms of what would, say, go on in Ireland, in a slaughterhouse, you've got kind of piecework, so they've got to move quick. And so if they don't stun the animals very well, then they wake up before they're killed. And so effectively they're being killed and dismembered and skinned while they're still conscious. And there's a lot of that goes on kind of everywhere. And that's because of the speed of the operation. It's
because of the speed of the operation.
Yeah, it's kind of like piecework. They get paid per unit, and other animals, unfortunately, in this society, are classified as production units.
That dog eating meat festival in China, I think it started in 2010. It's going ahead this year, but there has been huge outcry about it, hasn't there? It's a growing issue in publicity that the people who want to see it ended, isn't it?
Well, yeah, but I think that's because there's a growing animal rights movement in China. A lot of people will make racist statements about China because of this, but in actual fact, there's probably more vegans per capita in China than there is in the West. So we in the West don't really have any, right to criticise them, because what goes on in terms of with dogs, we do that to pigs and cows and chickens. So we've got no right to criticise them. The main problem is that a lot of people are outraged, and they tend to be non-vegans because it's kind of like they're picking on the wrong species, where we would say, well, hang on a minute, we do the same to other types of animals. But because dogs have got a particular cultural meaning for us, then people, pet lovers, if you like, they're outraged. It tends to be vegans who are a bit more kind of rational about it and say, well, hang on a minute, we do that to other species here.
I interviewed Declan Bones. You mentioned Declan there a few minutes ago. He's involved with vegan information on the go. I interviewed Amy McColgan from Donegal. Do you know her, do you? Amy McColgan. She has that YouTube page, Green Leafy Gale.
Oh, yeah. She's just moving to Spain, I think. Yeah.
I think she's just gone recently. I interviewed her a few months ago, and most recently I interviewed Bernie Wright in her capacity as press officer for the Alliance for Animal Rights. A couple of months ago I started drinking Tesco Thrift unsweetened soya milk. It tastes nice and has little sugar in it, and it's the same price as a litre of dairy milk. You've already talked about it already a bit, but what do you have to say, else do you have to say about the dairy industry in Ireland and about the alternatives?
Well, from our point of view, the dairy industry is involved in rights violations. We're a rights-based group, so we tend not to talk about cruelty as much as rights violations. So what we claim, we say that the case for animal rights says that other animals, like the ones used in the dairy industry, are rights bearers, which means that when we use them, that's a rights violation. And there are routine rights violations within dairy. For example, we systematically make female cows pregnant. It's interesting, really. There's a lot of ignorance within society about basic mammalian biology.
What's that word, mammalian?
Mammalian means that we're mammals, right? Yeah. So it's interesting because, human beings tend not to self-identify as animals, and we don't self-identify often as mammals, and we certainly don't self-identify as apes. Yet we are all those things. We're mammals, we're animals, we're apes, And for a female mammal to lactate, she must be pregnant first. So we make the cows pregnant by artificial insemination. There's a massive artificial insemination plant in Enfield, in County Meath. And then we take the baby away because we want the milk. Okay, and then once she comes back into season, as it were, then we make her pregnant again, and then steal the baby once more. And because this is such an intensive system, even though they might live to 25 and 30 years as free living beings, the industry call them spent within, say, 4 to 8 years, and then they're sent to a slaughterhouse. So the dairy industry. This is the interesting thing about vegetarians. Vegetarians are often vegetarian because they don't want to kill anyone, and yet they do through the consumption of dairy and eggs. But it's interesting. We get it over and over again. Vegetarians don't know, in the same way as vegans, as meat eaters don't know. So there's an interesting thing. It's vegetarians know more about meat than meat eaters, and vegans know more about the dairy industry than vegetarians. It's kind of a weird kind of thing.
Do you want to say any more? You were just talking there about the dairy industry in Ireland. Do you want to say anything more about the meat industry in Ireland? And just to mention the dairy industry again, what are the I mentioned soya milk a few minutes ago. What are the alternatives as well, for meat as well?
Well, there's a whole range now of vegan goods, So you can get vegan meats, you can get vegan cheeses, you can get vegan ice cream. So if you're looking for virtually any type of food now, there is a vegan version of it. We do the sampling of the vegan cheese here. We also have got a tea station where people can sit and talk to us, and we can give them a free cup of tea, and we'll give them soya milk. And my advice about soya milk is that if people try them and they don't like it, try another brand, because there are different ones with different tastes. You mentioned that some have got sugar in, whereas the one that we've got at the moment is a sweetened one, but it's sweetened with apple juice. So there are lots of different ones, and then also there's things like almond milk and rice milk and hemp milk as well. So in terms of plant-based milks, there's absolutely loads of those on the market now. There wasn't any when I went vegan. And now they're just everywhere, all supermarkets, everywhere you can get lots and lots of them, get shelves of them nowadays.
Okay, Roger, it's great talking to you. Can you give out your contact details for your organisation, and can you tell us in summary what your message is to our listeners?
Yeah, okay. It's the Vegan Information Project.cf is our website, and then we're also on Twitter and we're also on Facebook, so you can just find that by searching for Vegan Information Project. In terms of our message, as I say, we're a rights-based group, so we tell people about the philosophy of veganism, which stands for justice for all. It's a mixture of animal rights and human rights. In a vegan world, all human beings would be fed, for example. Nobody would be starving to death. In a vegan world, there would be a lot more space for free living beings, because a lot of land is taken up by providing feed. So it's about justice, it's about non-violence, and it's about peace, essentially. When the social movement was formed, the vegan social movement, which was 1944, that was the time of the World War. It was still going on, and they saw themselves as part of the peace movement, but they also saw themselves as part of the moral evolution of humanity. So what they were suggesting and what we would support is the idea that by liberating other animals, we would also liberate ourselves, and that our values would become values of justice, and not based on things like profit and stuff. It would change the way we think, in other words. So that means that, we would have a much more just world. Everybody would be fed. Every human being. I mean, there's something like 18,000 people die of starvation today, and yesterday, and tomorrow. Right. In a vegan world, we would produce the food for them. There's no need for it,
Yeah. Okay, Roger. It's great talking to you. I'll be talking to you again at some stage. So thanks very much.
Okay, you're welcome. Thanks very much. Yeah. Cheers.